Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is if you have your natal moon in Capricorn and your partner or your love interest does as well. And somebody requested this, and I think this is an interesting dynamic, and I'm going to do all of the same moon sign couples, where both people have their moon in the same sign. My partner and I both have the moon in Virgo, and I know that he and I have certain things in common. We also have the same sun signs, so that even makes it more similar. And you would think that if you have the same sun sign and the same moon sign, or just same sun or same moon sign, that that's going to give you an understanding and affinity with one another. And yes, that is true on some level. Not 100% of the time, though, because there are so many variables at play that some things may seem like they match up, but then you have other things that clash. And one of the I was going to say traps, but that's not really the word. One of the pitfalls of having the same moon sign is that you tend to have the same emotional reactions that are not really for your highest good. So, because the moon, to me, has a lot of challenging aspects to itself, just as an influence in your life. I know there are going to be some people that are offended by that. Probably Sun and Cancer people are going to say, what do you have against the moon? What do you have against emotions? I have said this before, that I think that emotions are irrational. Maybe you could chalk it up to my moon being in Virgo that I think that. But I think that emotions are given too much I don't know, like worship, or too high, deeming it too high an influence. When in fact, when you are feeling something, what we call intuition, I'm not including that in emotions, other than the intuitive side of you aligning with a certain emotion that is positive, and then you know that you're on the right track. Yes, I do think that that can happen, but I'm talking about reactions to life specifically, not your intuitive capacity. To me, there's a difference there. That is kind of like part of the higher consciousness. Now, it might plug into your emotional guidance system, as I think Abraham Hicks calls it, but I still believe that when we react to life with particular emotions, it's almost like a computer programming, where we already have this input, and so we just spit it back out depending on a certain circumstance. So the point is that the moon is connected to conditioning, and this is part of what forms your personality traits, because you express yourself in a certain way that might be different from somebody else based on what your experiences have been in the past, and not just necessarily in this lifetime either. So that's where I'm coming from. And so that's why I think that emotions in general tend to be more challenging, at least the ones that we grapple with. Nobody is like, oh, gee, I think I'm feeling too happy, unless they're just manic and they're acting kind of imbalanced. But I'm talking about, I'm just feeling too much joy. I don't know, maybe I should see somebody about that. It's usually those other emotions, the shadow self. And that's how I see the moon in general, is like kind of the shadow self. So when we're talking about Capricorn, we're talking about a sign that is ruled by Saturn, and it has that dampening effect on the emotions. A person with the moon in Capricorn has a lot of austerity to their emotional self-expression. Saturn is very economical, so nothing is in excess. There's no like excessive, excitement that is generated. Like the person is not likely to express themselves talking very loudly and quickly, and even if they're happy, they may have a muted type of quality. Now, it is important to note that the sun sign and other influences will definitely modify this. So let's say the sun is in Leo and the moon is in Capricorn. And maybe that person also has inner planets in Leo or inner planets in Gemini or something like that. That's very talkative or emotive. They're going to be they're going to probably be warmer because the moon in Capricorn is quite cold. But we're just talking about this in isolation of what it can mean. And so the person who has the moon in Capricorn usually is quite dampened in their emotions. And sometimes this is to the point of being overly serious. And so if they're listening to somebody who's telling a joke, that person may feel kind of like foolish, being either happy-go-lucky or joking around, while they're around somebody who has the moon in Capricorn, because it's like a wet blanket, or it's just like this person feels like everything is immature, that is of with a sense of gaiety or lightness. And that can create that Debbie Downer effect if you are around somebody who is much more, I don't know if the word is voluminous, I don't know if I'm misusing a word, but that kind of person who is very effusive, giving a lot of praise and a lot of, a generous in spirit. I think this can even make you even more sterner, if there's a word, stricter, authoritarian. And now when you're talking about having this with a partner, both people are expressing themselves this way. And the problem with that is that it exacerbates those qualities. Now, I would say the same thing if the moon was in Leo, because both people would be very in need of attention. And so they might be kind of trying to outdo each other. If they were at a party, they might be competitive for that attention and being the center of attention. The moon in Leo is very wanting of attention. The moon in Capricorn is pinning its emotional security on success in a career sense. And so there's a very good possibility that both people are going to be very emotionally connected to their career. Now, what if one person doesn't have anything going on career-wise? They have a job or they're unemployed, because I can't say that 100% of people with the moon in Capricorn are employed or are even ambitious. There might be different factors that make a person, even with this configuration, less than ambitious. Maybe even downright lazy. Maybe, I don't really like the word lazy because I think there's more to that story. I think that's a judgment that is kind of a surface judgment on other people. A lot of times those types of people don't feel competent, and they may have different reasons for that. They may have learning disabilities that made them feel inferior throughout their school years. And so they don't feel like they can learn things quickly enough for an employer. There are people who were punished for doing things wrong, and so they are afraid of doing anything at all. So we have to be careful about how we judge other people. And in this combination, when both people have the moon in Capricorn and one person is succeeding and the other one isn't, that can create an unfortunate dynamic where the person who feels like a failure is seeking to, freeze out that partner. And maybe even they fall into depression because Saturn can be very, the term Saturnine, I think that's how you pronounce it, is somebody who's very excessively somber. So it's kind of like if two people are in a swimming pool and neither one knows how to swim, they're going to try to hold on to each other and they end up both drowning. So maybe I'm being excessively negative about this combination. I would say on the positive side that you have two people who may be quite muted in their anger. So that's good because, even if they are muted in terms of how they express joy, they might not fly off the handle either. And so they might be actually kind of mature and constructive. When they get angry, they tell that person and they are very mature about it and they have expectations of resolving the issue. So that can be very good, especially if you've come from a background, maybe a parent who is very volatile or previous relationships with partners who are volatile. You may appreciate this type of individual because they're not going to tend to fly off the handle. I said tend to because you have to look if their Mars is in another cardinal sign or something like that, then that could be a little bit hairy because they might not get angry very quickly, but if somebody keeps pissing them off, then there could be a volcano effect. But anyway, the thing that the moon also represents is the mother. So both of these people may have in common a mother who is very cold and ambitious for their child. So this can have two possible effects. Well, actually more, but that I can see. One of them can be that they if they're in the matrix, and I'm using that to describe people that are going along with the programming of society, including parents, and they're not questioning things, then they might actually be of assistance in helping the other person become successful. And if the person is going through something at work, they can be very in tune with that and appreciative of what that person is feeling. If they are both suffering from a feeling of being kind of like treated like a trained seal by their mother or parent in general, the moon is supposed to represent the mother, but the problem with that is that sometimes it's not always the exact parent who is doing this, but let's just say it's the mother. That can be that kind of treatment where a parent approves of you or accepts you when you are doing what they want you to do or when you are succeeding. That is conditional love, and it's really not love, but conditional approval. Let's put it that way. That can, even on a subconscious level, I feel like that can be very damaging. And both of these people have that. So that if they are more spiritually aware and they kind of understand that life is more than just, being successful in a worldly sense in a career, then they can be quite supportive of each other's trauma in this regard. And so you can actually help one another become spiritually mature. Because Capricorn, I was looking and I saw that there were famous gurus who were Capricorns. One particular example is Paramahansa Yogananda. his birthday is on January 5th, and he wrote Autobiography of a Yogi, which is a classic in the spiritual community. So the point is that Capricorn, even though it is an earth sign, it's the last earth sign, and it can be spiritually motivated because it has, as the last earth sign, it has exhausted all of those pleasures of the flesh. And that's one of the reasons why I believe that, Taurus is the most materialistic of all the earth signs. Because Capricorn, being ruled by Saturn is not a shopaholic. Saturn is about being frugal and, economical, not being a spendthrift or anything like that, or indulgent. Saturn frowns on indulgence and waste and lack of discipline. So in that regard, you may have somebody who is very supportive of your goals across the board, maybe with health. The moon can represent health, just everything. And you may have that affinity for one another. So sometimes the good thing about both people having the same moon sign is that the expectations emotionally are going to be similar, and the other person isn't going to be disappointed. If one person has the moon in Capricorn and the other one has the moon in like Sagittarius, and one person, the Sag, is very boisterous and, happy-go-lucky, and it just rubs the moon in Capricorn the wrong way, the Sag moon person is going to feel very misunderstood and like, did I do, was it something I said? What's wrong that this person seems irritated by me? Why? What's wrong with me being happy or showing that I'm happy? And it's that both people having the moon in Capricorn, you're going to have that same emotional restraint, but you're not going to perceive it in the other person as something bad. I think the biggest danger is having too much of a pessimistic or somber vibe going on, where it kind of builds on the other the other person. It's just kind of like strengthening that, and because sometimes opposites attract, and you have one person who's very lighthearted, and the person who's a little bit more serious, they can feel that sense of being lightened by that other person. Or the person who is kind of lighthearted, who's a little bit frivolous emotionally, can gain a little bit of gravitas, and they learn how to self-regulate so that they, are not just being kind of flighty, like a moon and Gemini person kind of going from one thing to the other, but they just really allow a deepening of their emotions by kind of grounding them, with that earth energy versus air. There's that kind of a more substantial nature. And I feel like moon and Capricorn people, it's not that they can't be loving. It's just that their love is filtered through a lot of discipline. The word that came into my mind was restraints. But that doesn't mean that the person can't love. It's just that you have to be open, whoever you are, to other people's expression of emotion. You can't just make it about how you would do it. And so that's why I'm saying if you have the same moon sign, especially when it is in Capricorn, it can be very helpful in that regard. Okay, that's what I have for you. I hope that this resonated. And if you would like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.